As we start this evening's celebration, let us acknowledge the origins of this very place where we gather today. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm tribal sovereignty and express respect for Native peoples and nations. The University of Minnesota Morris is located along Awopute Wakpa, a place from which Dakota turnips have been dug river, on the edge of the Mashogde Aking prairie land. This land has been cared for and called home by the Dakota people, and later the Ojibwe people and other Native peoples from time immemorial. Our state's name, Minnesota, comes from the Dakota name for this region, Minnesota Makokse, the land where the water reflects the skies. Acknowledging the land and our history in this place is an offering of solidarity with and respect for our Native nations and peoples. In doing so, we, the University of Minnesota Morris, reaffirm our commitment to our responsibilities rooted in the history of our campus site as a Native American boarding school, our distinctive mission as a public liberal arts college within Minnesota's land-grant university, and our federal recognition as a Native American serving non-tribal institution. We'll now start dinner. You will be dismissed by table, and we'll start the formal program around 6:30. If you had a special dietary request, please notify the dining services staff as you approach the serving area. English isn't my first language. As I'm emceeing this, hold on to your seats too, if I'm gonna make some mispronunciations. But I think we could commence dinner. Thank you.
Welcome, all of you. I think I've talked to most of you, but not all of you. It is really wonderful to see so many people here and so many distinguished people. You are all such important parts of the University of Minnesota Morris community, and it's humbling every year to read about the accomplishments of our alumni. This year is definitely no exception to that. I am grateful to those of you who have taken the time to, present and far, to nominate this year's distinguished alumni. And before that, all of the Morris people who knew our alumni well enough to think about them long after they graduated and to be part of their lives and to elevate their connection to this place. Yesterday, I sent a message to first-year students inviting them to an advising event next week, and I stressed what can sometimes be a little hard for new students to see, that the relationships that you build as a student while at the Morris campus can be hugely influential both while you are a student here and long, long after. And there's a lot of testimony to that around this room. I want to highlight very briefly just a few of the ways in which we are continuing this year to amplify the core mission of this public liberal arts college, and at the same time to adapt to current challenges in higher education, about which you will no doubt have heard. The challenges are nationwide. One distinct asset we have on this campus lies in being part of the University of Minnesota system. And we've been working to elevate that more than we had for a long time. We've been working on pathways within the system to the Duluth or the Twin Cities graduate and professional programs, adding, for instance, recently an early assurance program for students who can apply to Morris and to the Doctor of Pharmacy program at the TC campus all at once. We are just about through approvals for a similar program that will allow a student to apply once for a complete path through the Morris bachelor's degree and a CFANS MA in applied economics. And we're partnering with the Duluth and Rochester campuses to expand internship opportunities as well as coursework options and other grad possibilities. And partnerships among faculty are worth noting too. A new project just recently announced called the Minnesota Partnership to Foster Native American Participation in Astrophysics has just been awarded by the National Science Foundation to Morris professors Peter Dolan and Silke Boyd, along with a professor of Ukmandik in the Twin Cities College of Science and Engineering. And our own Michelle Page, professor of education, was just awarded a collaborative urban and greater Minnesota Educators of Color grant from the state of Minnesota, which will provide direct student support. As we pull together to strengthen the advantages of this place, we are also doing a lot to help make the advantages of a University of Minnesota Morris degree more clearly visible. We've increased over last year the number of transfer agreements we have, which we hope will help students choose UMN Morris as the place to complete their undergraduate degree, even if they don't start here. We have agreements now with Fond du Lac Tribal and Community College, with Normandale College, with Central Lakes College, and more in process. And we've developed 2 3-year pathways to degree that can give students more time for such liberal arts experiences as internships and study abroad, or can be used to finish more swiftly if they really want to. Lots of Morris students these days already could finish in 3 years if they wanted, but they choose to stay for 4. And I'm sure that most of you, if you think back to your time as a student at Morris, those of you who were here can understand why. Once they get here, they're not really that anxious to leave here. But still, it's an option, these 3-year paths, and it's an attractive option. It's already something that we're hearing about from prospective students. Our fall incoming class this year is officially, not quite officially, a little bit larger than last year's, and we're working through the worst of the pandemic effects on enrollment, including with a lot of attention this year to rebuilding the levels of student engagement that I know many of you experienced and that were so strong here before that pandemic disruption. They're strong, but we're working to rebuild them to even higher levels. Part of that strengthening lies in marketing. Anybody see our billboard on 94 as you came up? 1 person, 2 people? Oh, a few people did. Okay. If you were coming from the north, anybody coming from the north? Nobody came down from the Fargo way. Everybody came the other way. Apparently, there's one by Fergus too. If you want to go for a drive, go north. And there will be more digital billboards around the Twin Cities area as well. But those are just the ones that you will see. Much of the marketing now, the most effective marketing is digital. A lot of it is on social media channels that if you're not the right age group, you're not going to see. Unless Nancy Carpenter is really into TikTok and Instagram, right, Nancy? Anyway, the TC stuff isn't up yet, but I hope when you see them, they make you smile. I really hope that you recognize what we're doing and that we are doing a lot to elevate things. You may also hear more about us on the radio and in other ways around the Twin Cities in coming weeks and months. There's a new campaign called Dear Minnesota that I got to preview just today, this morning, at the Board of Regents meeting. And it features a really wonderful little clip video of our own Troy Goodnow, who's our sustainability director, talking about the sustainability initiatives on this campus. So there are lots of ways in which we are pulling together as a system as well as individually that I really think will have an impact because we have a lot to be proud of and we have a lot to get out there. So we are so proud to be part of the University of Minnesota and prouder still of this place and of all of you. Thank you for your continuing participation in and promotion of the distinctive and wonderful University of Minnesota Morris community, and sincere congratulations to our distinguished Alumni Award recipients. Your success at UMN Morris and after exemplifies what is so extraordinary about a Morris education and experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Next, I would like to recognize this year's UMN Morris Alumni Association Teaching Award recipient. The University of Minnesota Morris Alumni Association Teaching Award honors faculty members for outstanding contributions to undergraduate education by calling attention to educational philosophies, objectives, and methods. The recipient is chosen by input from peers and former students. The 2023 award was presented this past spring to Dr. Jennifer Goodnow, Associate Professor of Chemistry. Dr. Goodnow holds a BS degree from St. Francis University in Pennsylvania and a PhD in Analytical Chemistry from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Jennifer was unable to be here this evening because she's attending orientation for the Big Ten Academic Alliance's Academic Leadership Program. In her absence, I would like to share a few remarks from her students and colleagues that illustrate why she was selected for this award. Whether she's teaching an introductory non-major course or an upper-level chemistry course, Jen's teaching epitomizes that of a liberal arts education. Jen's students in her lower-level classes remarked that she encouraged us to state our own opinions and share our points of view and look at the discussion topics from a liberal arts lens, learning how to better communicate and interact with classmates. One alum wrote that Jen provided kindness, support, and care for me not only as my advisor, but also as a professor and mentor. Her commitment to lifelong mentoring is clear in her former students' reflections on Jen and her impact on their lives. If you were once a student of Jen's, you will always be a student of Jen's. Comments from our colleagues describe her as a passionate and effective teacher and a knowledgeable and thoughtful academic advisor, noting that her positive impact and leadership, most notably on a curriculum, advising, teaching, as well as policy and procedures, has been significant and critical to the betterment of our campus and the student experience. From Jen's own teaching statement, she says, "Learning how to think critically and solve problems will serve my students long after they forget this symbol for platinum." Does anyone know what's the symbol for platinum? It is my honor, on behalf of the University of Minnesota Morris Alumni Association, to recognize Dr. Jen Goodnow, recipient of the 2023 UMMAA Teaching Award. Please join me in a round of applause to recognize Jen's amazing accomplishments. Thank you. Since we've mentioned the University of Minnesota Morris Alumni Association Board of Directors a few times this evening, that's a mouthful, by the way, guys. I'd like to take the opportunity to recognize the UMMAA board members present at this evening's event. Board members, could you please stand and wave as you're able? Thank you. We will now move to the recognition of our Distinguished Alumni Award recipients. The Distinguished Alumni Award honors alumni who make noteworthy contributions in their professional lives, in public service, or in service to the University of Minnesota. We're fortunate to have several of our past recipients of the Distinguished Alumni Award here with us today. If you're a past recipient, please stand. Thank you once again for your valued contributions. Now, for this year's nominees, this evening we will be recognizing 3 individuals who have made noteworthy contributions in their professional lives, in public service, or in service to the University of Minnesota Morris. Alana Peterson, class of 1991. Simone Shannon, class of 1997. Joan Bolfer, class of 1977. Sorry if I mispronounced your guys' name. I already said second language, try my best here. I know how it feels. I'd like to invite Adam Yust, class of 2009, to introduce Alana Peterson, our first recipient of the Distinguished Alumni Award.
Good evening. My name is Adam Yust. No apologies. A proud alumnus of the University of Minnesota Morris from 2009. Alana Peterson, a fellow political science alumna, hired me for my first big hit job within months of receiving my U of M diploma. While working under Alana's leadership, she made the work rewarding, educational, and fun. As we both still work in politics, I constantly find myself in difficult circumstances asking, what would Alana Peterson do? I also know other mentees, colleagues, and lawmakers ask the same question probably on a daily basis. WWAPD. Things we know. Alana is a strategizer. Alana is an organizer. Alana is a leader. And Alana is strong. Last month, I pulled a WWAPD during my day job at the City of St. Paul. Facing unforeseen circumstances, I whispered to myself, WWAPD. I realized that I needed a plan with strategies to organize advocates and to lead through strength. I've been amazed to watch Alana win governor's races, Minnesota legislative majorities, U.S. Senate races, all while raising 2 boys and somehow always knowing the location of her husband, Tom. I've witnessed Alana carry people and movements forward through stress and solemnity, with grace and with humor. I firmly believe that it all started here at the University of Minnesota Morris with a liberal arts degree. So please give a big UMN welcome to Alana Peterson, my dear friend and mentor.
Thanks, Adam. One of my favorite parts of doing this job is getting to work with wonderful colleagues like Adam, and I cherish our friendship. And you should know, I also ask Adam, what would Adam do? But it's like a tall order because he probably made the jacket he's wearing. He actually sews, and he probably made the shirt too. But anyway, what would Adam do? Thank you to the Alumni Association for the award. I'm thrilled to be back at our alma mater and to be standing next to some alums who are getting this award. One who has 19 patents, right? And another who saves lives in public health, and it's just really great to be here. And I want to thank my family for coming too. I truly appreciate the love and support, and I appreciate all of the political events you've attended, mostly willingly, over your lifetime, so thank you. Morris has been a big part of my career, and my career really is, I worked in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate off and on for over 25 years. I retired in 2019 to start my own consulting business. I worked for Minnesota campaigns really since 1998, serving as manager advisor for presidential to U.S. Senate to Congress to legislative to Senate caucuses. And actually, while I was here, worked for Chuck Brown. So I did some work for the Chuck Brown campaign. And then I also did 3 recounts, 2 of them statewide. So it's been a lot of campaigns. I also served as executive director for several nonprofits and managed a federal government relations practice. And I really worked hard to elect pro-choice women, which was a big part of my career. And I made a priority to mentor or help hundreds of people engaging in politics. And in that career, I was recognized by the DFL and given the Humphrey Award. And then Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan made June 14th, 2019, Alana Peterson Day, which is also my son's birthday, so he had to share it with me. Yeah. And then U.S. Senator Smith also commemorated my work by giving a speech on the floor of the Senate. And the Humphrey School gave me the award of the Gary DeCramer Public Leadership Award. And in some ways, I feel like I'm just getting started, but it all began here. And so while I was a student, I organized, I'm going to cross out one of the first, as Maddie reminded me, the first alumni career fair. And that was with board chair Pat Gannon. And our motto then was building your future. And I genuinely believe that I started to build my future while I was here at Morris. In this extraordinary campus with exceptional people, with exceptional students and staff and faculty. Really. People like Dr. Bazanson. So Dr. B's rhetoric class kicked my ass and changed my life. This is the only textbook I have for my undergraduate, and I vividly remember sitting in the basement of HFA in room 20, probably room 25, and you could hear her shuffle down the hall, coming to class, and I would be sitting in the left-handed chair, only one, waiting for her to arrive, and she had a lot of energy, and she would burst in the room and say, "Good morning!" And she loved teaching us rhetoric, but more than anything, she loved if we actually understood how to use it, which was often a challenge. But honestly, Dr. Bazanson taught me really the art of persuasion, and you can imagine that was pretty critical when you're in politics. And then there was Tom McRoberts. And Tom ran continuing ed and was an advisor of college Democrats, and Tom could be tough. And he was tough on me. I remember the first time he made Karen Ellis come deliver the news. If you know Karen too, it was with a Karen Ellis smile, and sat me down and told me that I had to rewrite my report on summer theater. And, and that he challenged me to think critically about what I had learned and what would I do differently. And and I really, truly enjoyed my time in continuing ed and working with Karen and Tom and the whole team. Later, Tom recommended me for a job. I worked for Congressman David Mingy, which was my first job out of school. I was one of two that he recommended. And I got to work with another alumni, Rick Jowert, who is a cherished friend. But Tom really taught me to be sort of self-reflective, learn from my mistakes, and follow my dreams. And then there's Sandy Olson-Loy. Sandy was patient. That's what I would say, as I brought bands and films and speakers to campus. And she never mentioned whether she knew that I got Ladysmith Black Mambazo to party with me and my friends all night long after their performance. So I was really happy about that. But really, Sandy taught me to lead and enjoyed doing it. So thank you, Sandy. And then there was Gary McGrath. So Gary teamed up with a small group of students to get funding from the legislature for the student center that we're standing in today, and I was one of those students. And I will never forget the end of session, late night drive to the governor's mansion. Gary drove us and we listened loudly, really loudly, to the Supremes all the way down. And we arrived at midnight and had a meeting with the governor and secured the commitment for the student center we're in today. But he taught me the art of sort of lobbying and storytelling. And then there was the one tall public safety officer. And my apologies, I didn't remember his name, but Brian reminded me today. But he was tall, kind, and patient. And as a student, I drove a scooter around campus, and I would park wherever I wanted. And my parking locations became like a friendly back and forth. And pretty intense during the summer I was on campus. And over that summer, I accumulated $7 of parking fines. And at the end of the summer, I gathered all of the change from my roommates in the house and went to Bemler Hall and dumped the change on his desk. And we both laughed really hard. And it still makes me laugh. But that tall officer really taught me to be bold and maybe a little sassy, but I do remember him fondly. And then there was Chancellor Johnson. I was here during the transition from Imholtz to Chancellor Johnson, and I helped organize the Chancellor Imholtz retirement celebration with Maddie, and then challenged Chancellor Johnson on one of his first decisions on campus, which was, he was gonna make commencement line up alphabetically versus the major. And I'm making everyone cringe that I put through that, but I got the students really riled up, and I had a petition. I think I even stapled them to some of the trees out there, and I did get them to not do that. And I was gonna say not until I left, but I also heard that it never happened, which feels like a little bit of a badge of honor. And later, I will tell you that Chancellor Johnson called me probably 5 or 6 years ago out of the blue just to, maybe it's longer than that, but just to check in and hear about my career. And I was thinking about what he taught me. It was really about your adversaries can be your friends, right? And finally, I would say, is Maddie Maxheimer. And every time I read this, I get a little choked up. But during her time as alumni director, I know Maddie became friends with so many. But for me, she was a friend and a mentor. And as a student, I served as one of her first students. She taught me to fundraise, she taught me to organize, she taught me to be professional. And Maddie, over the years, has never lost sight of me or my career. And I know that, and my family, and I know that if I called Maddie or Tom today, they would take my call, they'd listen, they'd help me solve a problem. And she's just been a cheerleader and the definition of a professional mentor my whole career. So I would really call Maddie a part of my family. So thank you, Maddie. It meant the world to me. So Dr. B, Tom, one tall officer, Chancellor Johnson, Maddie, and so many more exceptional people at Morris truly, truly did build for my future. And I've had fun in a successful career, a professional one that allowed me to meet the Dalai Lama, be subpoenaed by the Clinton independent investigation and testify at the grand jury, help bring UMM students to DC and work on Capitol Hill, give out long overdue Purple Hearts to veterans, help secure the final vote for the Affordable Care Act, introduce my kids to Michelle Obama, John Lewis, senators, governors, and presidents, hire thousands, I think I can safely say thousands, young people to work on campaigns who I have later worked for or voted for, have Congressman Oberstar pull me into a room. I was standing outside to introduce me to President Clinton as one of the most talented operatives in the state, and my eyes were this big. Attend a Janet Jackson concert with Prince, true story, I can tell you later. Laugh a lot every day on the job with Senator Franken, who to this day still treats my kids like family. Travel to every corner of the state listening to Minnesota stories. Hire and advise the Senate caucus campaign that gave the Minnesota trifecta last session. Meet my husband doing the Congo line through the kiddie pool at a DFL convention, who now, by the way, is your Commissioner of Agriculture. And work with outstanding alumni like Rick Joward, Adam Eust, Shelley Schaefer, Kurt Yoakum, and others who make up the Morris Mafia. But thank you for the honor, and from this place where I built my future, and memories I will cherish. So thank you.
Okay, wait, you met Prince and Michelle Obama? I want to be her friend. Well, thank you, Alana, and congratulations. Our next recipient of the Distinguished Alumni Award is Dr. Simone Shannon. Here to introduce Simone is Professor Emerita Nancy Carpenter. Welcome, Nancy.
Well, all I can say is it's really good to be back. And what a great story. And this is why I love Morris. Just listening to these stories just makes my heart. But I have a good news story to tell too, and that's about Simon. And I am introducing Simon thinking, holy moly, 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago, not quite. How do you introduce somebody? How can I encapsulate for you this guy, in a couple of minutes? And one thing is, you were talking as like leadership, organization, potential. Man, I think we're going to hear that many times over tonight. So, Simon, I had the honor of teaching organic chemistry while I was here at UMM. And when you teach organic chemistry, that means you teach organic chemistry lab, and you see all these youngsters in a scary place. But this guy is like, got to keep an eye on this guy. He seems to be really comfortable here. Well, holy cow, he knows what he's doing. He's like, wow, he's really organized. He's on top of things. He has potential. So I early on recognized that Simon was somebody who could do it all. He was somebody to watch. So he was in my OChem course, and you seem to think that you weren't as strong in my OChem course as I remember, but you managed to get through, right, somehow or other. He has his PhD in organic chemistry. I think he was okay. But anyhow, so early on I recognized Simon as definitely one to watch. So he got his PhD in organic chemistry down at the U of M, and then has had a couple of corporate jobs. He's risen through the ranks very strongly at 3M. And his scientific accomplishments are many, as was mentioned earlier, has many patents, and he knows a lot about chemistry. But he's also, and I think this is the more important thing, he's such a leader. Simon, it was always it's very discouraging to me that most of my students were white students who, of course, were very successful, and my black students were few and far between. And here was Simon, and he just was doing great. He has carried the standard to encourage students of color in chemistry like you wouldn't believe. He's been recognized as a TRIO National Achiever. He started Minnesota chapter of NOMACHE, and NOMACHE is the national organization of black chemists and chemical engineers. He has received NOMACHE's presidential award, and he came back as our first keynote to UMM, as our first keynote speaker for our fledgling McNair program. He has paid back like you wouldn't believe. And so I'll end just by saying his PhD advisor, George Barani, who couldn't be here, had this quote in the nomination materials. George quoted, ambitious, that Simon is ambitious in the best sense of the word. He's generous in giving back and in paying forward. He has been a great person for me to get to know in my career, and he's been a great asset for UMM. So I'm very pleased that he can receive this award. Simon.
Thank you, Nancy. Just beginning by thanking you for the nomination. Much gratitude. Appreciate the kind introduction and the remarks that you provided, and also hearing all the stories from the various distinguished alumni, recipients, alumni, and others. You know, it's very interesting hearing about the unique journeys that you all are having. You know, the career in politics, public health. Want to send a heartfelt thanks to the committee for selecting me, and to the nominators whose belief in us has brought us to this occasion. And none of us would be here without the work and support that you all have put in for today's event and also this weekend's. I want to take a slightly different approach, just giving a little bit about my story. I was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida, and that's a state that has received some recent attention from its politics, race relations, including a tragically racially motivated event that happened just not too far from my childhood home. And my upbringing in Jacksonville somewhat prepared me for this proverbial culture shock that many of my black inner city colleagues here, when I was at Morris, had experienced. But grew up in an all-black neighborhood. It was an era when they were still executing the plans of school integration. But this, you know, it was very favorable as well as challenging experiences that brought me to, but it also, remember an event that happened just outside of I was in the 8th grade. I remember coming back home. It was a 30-mile bus ride. They used to bus us way across town to integrate the school, and there was a violent race riot that happened just outside of the school. It resulted in a school lockdown, and on that very same day, it was just outside of the middle school. So, you know, things like that you have to go through, but it kind of prepares you for things to come. You know, and as a child, didn't fully comprehend the financial struggles that we were having at the time. In retrospect, I do recall the subsidized lunches that we were getting from school. I remember the reliance on food stamps, the occasional refusal from my mom when I wanted the latest toys and clothes, and also just the hand-me-downs that came from older cousins. But nonetheless, despite these hardships, it gave me the appreciation for the basic needs and life's essentials. You know, started wrestling my sophomore year in high school, and I eventually transferred to a private school, it's the Bowl School, and completed my junior and senior year at that school, eventually graduating as one of 5 blacks in my class. And in addition to the academic accomplishments, I excelled at the sport of wrestling and ended up winning 2nd place in the state championship my junior year, winning the state championship my senior year, and that garnered the attention of the wrestling staff here at Morris. And I remember for the first time reviewing this VHS video that they sent to me from the campus. I just dated myself, but I remember seeing the emerald green fall-colored trees, the freshly manicured landscaping here on campus, and it was a beautiful campus. The marketing was very smart to not show what winters looked like to an incoming Floridian. But these are some of the things I remember. And also, ultimately made the decision to come to Morris, Minnesota, a place that I had never visited. Vividly remember arriving to the Twin Cities and touring downtown Minneapolis, the Mall of America, and then this sudden change in this transition to this rural environment, to the smell of horse barn, the cows. I was like, wait, I didn't see any of this on the videotape, but. So when people ask, how did you end up in Minnesota coming all the way from Florida, I initially started, and I just said it today, that I was tricked in coming here. But despite that initial shock, I have no regrets about choosing this outstanding institution. I arrived here as a pre-med chemistry major and dreams of becoming a medical doctor and organic chemistry, the make or break course for the pre-med students. It nearly broke me. Nancy, she didn't mention it, but it nearly broke me. But Nancy stepped in. She stepped in, she took a chance on me. She appointed me the head teaching assistant for the chemistry department. And that's when, at a time when I was nearly failing the course, I remember seeing a D at one point in the second organic. But nonetheless, it renewed my enthusiasm for chemistry and I also credit that opportunity as one of my first formal leadership role, being in that head teaching assistant. And that experience led to many other opportunities, McNair Scholarship, conducting research at the Department of Chemistry under the direction of Dr. George Barani in the Twin Cities campus during the summers. And I eventually earned a PhD in organic chemistry, a subject that I thought that I initially struggled with, but it did teach me a valuable lesson that nothing is hard, but everything takes time. And one of my fondest memories is presenting my summer research in one of your classes on peptide chemistry, and one of the first PowerPoint presentations that I had given, and enthusiastically remember reciting a compound that I learned and that I used during my research, and it was benzotriazole N-oxy tris-dimethylamino phosphonium hexafluorophosphate. Till this day, I remember it. It always impresses people when I recite that, but it also took the support of professors like Jim Olson, Toges, remember Joe Franick, all of those interactions helped me shift my focus from medical school to this PhD program. Learning to be comfortable in uncomfortable places was crucial. My upbringing in Jacksonville planted that seed for the resilience. The liberal arts education here, the chemistry major, the wrestling experience, the McNair experience, it helped me grow and blossom. A number of people, colleagues that I were able to meet here. My best man at my wedding, Robbie Norman, also on an alumni. I'm the godfather of his child, Alonzo Myers, and a small group of people from Chicago. We refer to ourselves as the regulators. We still stay in touch to this day. And a number of other mentors, friends, they all helped shape my ability to show empathy to others, get into the act of giving back, contributing as an individual, also in a team setting, taking risks, most importantly, authentically connecting with people from all walks of life. All these are areas of growth that I experienced right here on this campus. So I want to extend my deepest thanks to Nancy. Thank you for taking a chance on me, believing in me then and even now, and the university for the nomination, the exceptional education that it has provided to me, and also for those who wrote the letters of recommendation. Extremely grateful, and this recognition is a testament to our collective efforts. So finally, encourage anyone who's in this room who has the resources, has the guidance, has the influence, continue to take chances on people like me. You could be planting the seed for the next distinguished alumni. So thank you.
Thank you, Simon. That was truly inspiring, man. Thank you for sharing your story. So Alana and Adam used to have their own thing called the Morris Mafia and the Chicago Regulators. Something's going on. I feel like there's something going on. Wow, Alana pronounced those names right this time. Yeah. Okay. Going to figure out. Well, now, lastly, let's go to our third recipient of the Distinguished Alumni Award, which is Joan Bolfer. Achieving a land speed record to be here tonight to introduce Joan is David Ekman, class of 1978 and the 2011 recipient of the Distinguished Alumni Award. Thank you for being here, David. Please help us welcome David with a round of applause.
Thank you. It was really an honor to be able to nominate Joan, and I think you'll see why. Originally from Fairmont, Minnesota, Joan Bolfer attended the University of Minnesota Morris from 1973 to 1977, where she majored in biology. From here, she went to the Twin Cities campus of the University of Minnesota to obtain a master's degree in human nutrition. Joan has been extremely influential in her fields of public health and nutrition. Her contributions to local communities and the state of Minnesota have been numerous. She has been the education coordinator for the Minneapolis Department of Health, a scientist at the University of Minnesota, and a health promotion specialist for the city of Bloomington, a role that she held for many years. Joan has been instrumental in developing many public health and nutrition programs which have had significant impacts on underserved segments of our society. Specifically, she has worked to help address healthcare, housing, childcare, and nutrition for BIPOC and other marginalized people of Minnesota. Her work has included education from the communities she serves to the University of Minnesota School of Public Health. On a statewide level, Joan has worked with the Minnesota Department of Health to develop the statewide Health Improvement Partnership, improving health and decreasing the incidence of chronic disease. She also helped their Learning About Nutrition Early Childhood program. On the community level, Joan has worked to improve the nutrition in local schools and food shelves, and many of her contributions have been quite innovative. Joan has mentored and preceptored numerous University of Minnesota School of Public Health graduate students, and for her work she received their Community Partner Award in 2020. Most recently, Joan worked on the public health COVID-19 response, developing strategies to assist the BIPOC community during the pandemic. She also worked the front line staffing vaccination clinics, and she continues to volunteer and contribute to improve the health of the BIPOC community. Joan currently lives in Roseville with her husband Dana. They have two adult sons, David, who attended the University of Minnesota Morris here, majoring in computer sciences, and Daniel, who is a mechanical engineer. It is with great honor that we can present the Distinguished Alumni Association Award to Joan Bolfer.
Well, I am very happy and very pleased to be here tonight and proud to have been nominated for the award, and thanks to Dave for nominating. I am happy for myself, of course, but I'm really mostly happy for the people who got me here, right? That helped me along the way. It was, I almost hate to admit it, but 50 years ago, this fall, that I arrived on the Morris campus I was a shy farm girl from southern Minnesota who had almost no experience in the world. The professors that I was privileged to have here had a profound effect on me and my career. It wasn't the facts or the concepts that I learned from lectures or books, but it was the confidence that I gained. This university is a place that cares about students and gives them much more than a degree. When professors know who you are and they remember your name, you realize just how important you are as a person and a student. Here I was given opportunities to become the best that I could be and to try things that I had never tried before. In the end, it was these relationships that changed my life. Although most of my professors were talented teachers and really caring people, there are several people who've had a big impact on me. Jim Toges was by far the most wonderful teacher that I've known. When I was left here and went to graduate school, fellow students would exclaim they hated organic chemistry. They just hated it. It was the hardest class they'd ever taken. And I'd look at them and in reply, I'd say, I loved organic chemistry. And it was not because it was easy, but because of the person who taught me, made it easy to understand, and a joy to learn. His care and patience with us in explaining difficult concepts was the example I followed later in my own work with graduate students. My biology professor, Kathy Horton, firmly believed that young women could reach for the stars. This was at a time when that was not the norm in where I grew up, in rural Minnesota. She did several things that changed my life. First, she encouraged me to apply for a National Science Foundation fellowship. I asked my advisor, Tom Straw, about it and asked him if I should do that. And he said, nobody from Morris has ever gotten one of those, but you should try. So I went ahead and I got it, and it made it possible for me to pursue my graduate degree. When Dr. Horton left the profession and became a missionary in Nepal, she invited me to come and visit. Now, back then, nobody I knew went on a study abroad, so nobody really had been anywhere, and certainly not that part of the world. But when my husband finished his degree, I said, let's go. So we did. And we spent almost a year traveling through South and Southeast Asia. And that was a trip that truly changed my perspective on the world. We visited development projects, and I had an opportunity to see preventable nutrition diseases in children that I'd only read about in textbooks. And that experience inspired my lifelong passion to help others in the field of public health nutrition. I discovered that I had so much more in common with people than our cultural differences. That trip taught me humility and compassion and an acceptance of cultural differences that helped me be successful in the most gratifying part of my career, and that was working with refugees and immigrants. My experience with the professors here also inspired me to devote time to being a preceptor to U of M public health graduate students. I had many, many students over the years that I mentored and provided on-the-ground public health experiences to each semester. It was my chance to repay the many people who taught me and encouraged me and gave me the experience and the confidence to succeed. I'm grateful for all that this university gave me so many years ago and made it possible for me to distinguish myself as a graduate of this fine university. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, Joe. On behalf of the University of Minnesota Morris Alumni Association Board of Directors and the University of Minnesota Morris campus community, I want to once again share our best wishes and congratulations to all of you who were recognized this evening. We are proud to lift you up as an exemplary members of the University of Minnesota Morris community. Our deepest gratitude goes out to everyone who has joined us in celebrating their successes and contributions. This concludes our formal program, but please join us for more conversations along with the desserts and beverages directly outside these doors in the grand foyer of the Edward J. and Helen Jane Morrison Performing Arts Center. For those of you who are honored this evening, please meet by the photo wall outside of the room to have your picture taken before heading to desserts. Thank you, and have a great homecoming weekend.